And she dramatised everything and animated her story by saying she had to be carried out of school. So here's important things. Here's one lie I just want you all to realise, right? She said she had to be carried out of school because of Enoch's behaviour. But she forgot. She had amnesia, dementia, that she was on a walker 24/7, okay, folks, you hear that? She was using the aid of a walker for a double hip operation. So the woman couldn't actually walk. But this lie was allowed in court that she had to be carried out of the school, if you follow what I'm saying. You know, but she's so overwhelmed by Enoch's aggressive behaviour. Enoch wasn't aggressive. I've been in court and he wasn't aggressive once, nor was any of his family. The media in this country are nothing but bought out prostitutes here, and shame on every one of them media prostitutes that's running these stories about the family. They're a very, very good family of impeccable stature, you know, and you couldn't get a better person, you know. That man should be in that jail. And I'd just like to say that in the new year, Dublin says now we'll be doing protests at abortion clinics, and we'll be doing protests at the constituency offices of every single person that voted yes to kill babies, and that bill the other day. And that's what we're going to be doing. You know, I know it's a big issue in Ireland. Right? It breaks the country up. A lot of people, you know, are saying, "Oh, but what if someone, you know, there's always like birth control and stuff like that." And I sympathise for women that's raped and stuff like that and harmed, you know. But there's always birth control and there's, you know, there's always adoption for couples, for example, that have a child, conceive a child, whether it's accidentally or whatever. There's always adoption, you know. What breaks my heart, I need to bother the case talking to Michael the other day, was and there's two media articles out there recently. One section, Brian. There's two media articles came out there recently in the last week, and they're saying to the nation that some of these babies survive the abortion protest, especially when they're over 6 months old, that they're strong enough, they're too strong to not to die, you know. And these babies are just left like dying rats in a room to cry themselves to death with no food. Like, that's fucking horrific. If we can't come together for these babies, you know, oh man, I lost your words. It's absolutely horrific. As I said, it's biblical times, it's good against evil, and sadly, these people in these jeeps here, they're serving evil puppet masters. That's all they're doing. They don't care. There's Satanism all around us in this country. And I said, it's spiritual warfare. There's evil in people's minds. You know, these loony left are absolute sick animals. They are. They're perverted and sick, and they're traitors to every child in this country and traitors to every Christian in this country. The fact that they voted to ban fox hunting, but then they wanted to vote and make it illegal to murder children. If that doesn't waken up your souls and your hearts and minds to what these people really are, I don't know what will. You know, as I said, it's a tough time of year for people to come and you know, go to a protest. You know, and I thank everyone again, as I said. I thank you all for coming here today. But like, we're going to call another protest here next Sunday at 1 o'clock again. Dublin says now we're going to be here next Sunday. Hopefully, the 28th, Michael said. Next Sunday we'll be here at 1 o'clock, and we'll be here in the new year again then for Enoch. Every Sunday at 1 o'clock we're going to continue these protests until this man is freed. And just on the other hand, then we have weekly protests at the Department of Immigration. Because of the situation, what's happening in the country, without going into things, and I just want to stipulate something. I want to make something very, very clear. I'm not a racist person. I don't particularly hate any type of race or anything like that. So before the loony left, I'm saying this so the loony left, when they're watching the feeds, they have nothing to chew on. Because like the way limited immigration worked well in this country, we had people come in, we needed them in the nursing sector, the hospital sector, the hospitality sector, and so on. You know, but what's happening is they've just opened up the floodgates to the world, to anyone on the run to come to the country, which is it's wrong. You know, and we've all seen what's going on. We all know from watching online and the internet and social media that the majority of things that's happening in the country is not being reported on, including last year there was 98 attempted abductions, child abductions in the country, and only 2 of them made the media, you know. So we're in a very worrying time in the country. You have media that's bought out, as I said, they're just bought out prostitutes, and you have innocent men like Enoch Burke locked up in that prison there. Shame on them. It's an absolute disgrace. And you have paedophiles being let off by Martin Nolan. Isn't it amazing how Martin Nolan seems to get to deal with the paedophiles all the time? It's not a bit sinister, isn't it? Do you not think that's sinister? Every fucking paedophile in the country seems to get to Nolan, and he gives them all a pat in the back and gives them a suspended sentence. And then you have that other man, the migrant who kidnapped the child, effectively a young girl, a 5-year-old, I think it was Tyrrellstown, I might stand corrected in that, and tried to run off down the road or to do God knows what. You have to think of the worst. He wasn't bringing her off to make her a cup of tea and sandwiches. Like, and yet Martin Nolan let that man walk free and said that's for another day. He didn't understand English. Like, folks, we have to come together. This really, really sinister stuff happening all around us. And it's in the justice system. It's in the heart of the country. It's the establishment, the politicians, the judiciary, the courts, the police. They're all corrupt to the core. What I call on any police that see this video now today, I call on them the down tools. Because I just want to actually make somebody as aware, actually, I've just got tipped off in some information here. The guards are actually considering another blue flu strike. Believe it or not, this inside information I'm getting here off people. I have a lot of contacts around the country, and they're considering another blue flu strike because they're sick of the situation with the migrants in the country, that they're attacking women and children, and they're being forced to police these right past centre protests, and that they don't want to do it. And that they can't also, here's the information I got, right, that they can't get houses themselves. A lot of new guards coming into the force, right? They can't get houses, they can't rent houses, they can't buy houses, and if you're going to rent a house, you're outnumbered by a couple of hundred, you know, people that just come in and about in the country, you know, and the same when you're coming to buy a house, there's hundreds of people in the queue before you, from God knows where that's coming in, you know, with just call stuff out here. I'm going to call stuff out. I didn't want it, but I'm going to call stuff out. You have people coming in there hate Christianity, and it's not right. You have people here that want to abuse women and treat them as subservient, absolute slaves and stuff. They don't blend in their culture. They don't. They're not. They shouldn't be welcome here. If we had a proper government, these people wouldn't be allowed here. You know, we respect our women in this country. You know, and our children. And anyone that comes in here, radical Islam, you're not welcome. Anyone that comes in here thinking you're going to abuse our women and children, it's not going to happen on my watch, I can tell you. And the rising leaders didn't die in vain on my watch. For anyone that doesn't know, the 1916 site where the rising leaders sacrificed their lives and surrendered, and were later killed and thrown in jail, I forced my way in that site in 2014, and I stopped it from being demolished by Hammersmith builders who were going to demolish the site. I want that to be turned into a museum. There's some of the levels of activism we've done. As I said, when I passed out that, I got into 17 months ago. We put Irish homeless into the place to stop the invasion, to stop what's happening to these people that's coming in. Just the fact that there's sinister people coming in, because every criminal and every scumbag in the world knows that you can come to the world as a soft touch, you get a free home, free welfare, and the Irish that's sleeping on the streets. I'm a homeless activist years. I know loads of homeless people. Leon there, Fred, Andy's there, shared a video there last night of homeless people sleeping under a bridge up in Finglas. They've nowhere else to go, but the council have the money to bring them to court to evict them. It's absolute disgrace, but they've no money to house them. But they've money to house the whole world. And then Jim O'Callaghan's virtue signaling saying, you know, we're going to start mass deportations. They deported 4 people on a plane there a couple of weeks ago. They deported 30 Georgians about 2 months ago before that. But on the other hand, I just want you to pay attention. There's a company called Transboil that Jim O'Callaghan signed off and gave them permission to set up another 100 IPAS centres. So on one hand, they're virtual signaling in the media saying we're going to start deportations. But on the other hand, there's a lot of Apple tax money, the 15 billion is being laundered at brown envelopes all over the place and lying in the likes of Seamus Bradley McEnany's pockets. You know, it has to stop. We have to come together as a nation and say we're in very worrying times. There's lots of parents, you know, out here with us here today, their kids can't get a house, they can't get out of the house. And I'm sure they'd like to have their own space and let their kids go out and rent a home, but you can't get a home. There's so many issues facing this country as a whole, it's unbelievable, you know. Look at Simon Harris. He was Minister for Health during the smear campaign. They used a company that made massive grave mistakes, which women paid with their lives, you know. Then they went ahead after a couple of months when it died down in the media, and they used the same company again to do the same smear test and made more mistakes, and more women lost their lives. And then there was a no confidence vote in Simon Harris, and he was, you know, stood down from Fine Gael somewhat. And now all of a sudden, well, he was there Taoiseach for a while till Micheál Martin took over. Micheál Martin's accreditation, I want you to remember this, well, he was Minister for Health. He closed 4 hospitals when the country was in a boom. These people do not give a shit about you. And it's very important you remember that. They don't give a shit about you. All they give a shit about is their Golden Circle gang, their cartel. They run like a cartel. And as I said, that 15 billion Apple tax, all of a sudden, they've money to house the whole world, but they've no money for the Irish homeless. As I said, I'm a homeless activist. Like in 2013, there was 150,000 Irish families up for eviction. And the government were saying back then, when I was helping these families, they were saying, we've no money to help these people. But all of a sudden, 10 years later, after loads of these Irish fathers killed themselves over, you know, it's a very hard thing losing your home. It's not for the average person. A lot of people commit suicide. Now the lawyers were lost in vain because all of a sudden the government have money to house the whole world and bring in people that's attacking our women and children. As I said, folks, we have to stand together. And that's not being racist or fascist to call stuff out that's happening. Like that 10-year-old child in City West that was raped by a migrant that shouldn't have been here, that had a self-deportation order. Talk about an absolutely spineless, useless government that hadn't got the strength and the balls to actually put these people on a plane and get them out of here. Like 17,000 people were refused immigration status here just this year alone, okay? 60,000 people, migrants, were given visas like confetti on the guise of wanting to learn English. Now, I'm not saying they're all bad by any means, but there's a lot of these people coming in, they're not checking us in, they don't know who they are. As I said, limited migration worked years ago, up to about 4 years ago, when they were checking people, doing background checks and knowing that they were held on a minute. This fella's on the roof for rape and war crimes and all the rest, you know. We really have to stand together as a nation and really get our act together, as I said. Like, we have to protect the children of Ireland for one. As Enoch said in his last speech, he's in prison for the children of Ireland. It's not particularly just for Enoch, but I'll tell you one thing, there's not many men like that man in this country that'll go into prison for his Christian beliefs, you know. And as I said, I'm a Christian, and I stand with Enoch, and we'll continue to stand here, Dublin Says Now, for every single week, right through to whenever he's released. We're going to be here every Sunday at 1 o'clock. So just like us to share all that information amongst your friends and families and encourage everyone you can to come to these protests, because as I said, we have to show the children of the world that's watching these feeds that we care for them and that we're going to do everything in our power to protect them. And another thing that I'd like to say, we're going to be doing SPHE program protests. So anywhere that's pushing this SPHE indoctrination of our children, we're going to be doing protests. Like there's a printers down in Waterford. I may as well say it to live so you have the information. There's a printers down in Waterford called Prime Ed Printing in Waterford Business Park, and they're the biggest printers of these SPHE books. Now, there's a child here, so I can't really go into detail what they're saying in the books, but they're telling the children to do really depraved, sick, disgusting things, you know, and telling them to go to adult dating apps to see, you know, grown men and stuff. There's this really sinister stuff happening, folks. It's like a paedophile's wet dream just happened all of a sudden when O'Gorman got a power and Varadkar and all the rest. There's really sinister things happening in this country, and as I said, we have to stand together as one, and, you know, everyone around you, you know, if you're on the same, how can I say this, put it worse, a lot of people around, you know, they come to the protest, they don't know each other, they're kind of a bit cautious of each other. We look, anyone that comes to these protests, we all have the same beliefs, we're all on the same side. And I'd just like to say, people that's online, stop spraying stuff about each other online. It's very childish, people going online saying, oh, you know, there's a lot of prominent people that I look up to, you know, posting stuff about each other online. We don't all want to see other individual people's personal stats. Keep the personal, please, because you're destroying the unity of the movement. And just call that out, please. Everyone has to stop doing that and just stick together as one, as I said, and come back to Mountjoy Prison every Sunday at 1 o'clock and stand for the children of Ireland and stand for ENOCH BURKE. You know, that has to stop. We have to stay together, unite as one. Free, ENOCH BURKE! 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 What do you want? ENOCH out! 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 When do you want it? Now! I'll let someone else take over and make a few words here. Thanks for coming again today, folks. Thanks very much as you said for calling. And as I said, we'll be here every Sunday at 1 o'clock. Thanks very much for coming. Want to have a few words?